Well, good afternoon. Happy to be here. And I was thinking a little bit about the concept of losing our way. And the first thing I did when I see language like that is I go and try to figure out what those words mean. And losing means something you've lost your watch. It's usually somewhat permanent. It's not temporary. You've lost something. And way has to do with path. We want to find a way to reduce expenses. We want to find the way to get to Disney World. Way has to do with path. And I was thinking that maybe I want to talk today about finding your way. And the question I want to raise is the relationship between losing our way and finding your way. And maybe there's a definition of finding your way that requires you to lose your way. So I'm going to put that on the table, and we're going to come back to that over the next 10 minutes. This is a leadership session, so I have to quickly get my notion of leadership out to you. And so I need you to think, this, by the way, you can't be an audience, you got to be engaged in this session. I need you to think about something in your life today that gets under your skin, that either irritates you or excites you, but something that triggers an emotional response. I'll give you 30 seconds to do that. Okay, if any of the things that you've thought about are things that you can't do a thing about, there's nothing you can do about it, the leadership lesson is what? Let it go. You've got limited amounts of energy and emotional capacity to apply to things. You've got something that's under your skin that you can't do anything about, and the lesson is let it go. If there's anything that you thought about that's under your skin that either excites you or irritates you that you can do quite a bit about, the answer is act on it. If you've got something that's triggering an emotional response that you can do quite a bit about yourself, get up and do it. Right? What's interesting to me is what's left. If any of you had things on your list that you could do something about, but not a lot about. We've eliminated the things you can't do anything about. We've eliminated the things you can do a lot about. If you have something on your list that you can do something about, but not a lot about, my experience is that many people will say, if I can't do a lot about it, I'm going to do nothing. And some people will say, if I can do something about it, and I know I can't do a lot about it myself, I'm going to engage some others, and I'm going to act on it. And if you understand that simple notion, you understand my sense of the word leadership. It's not about a leader, it's not about leading a parade, it's about people acting on their passions in a practical way, frequently in collaboration with other people. Okay? Okay, we have that nailed down. Now, when we talk about the meaning of finding your way, I'm going to lay out the idea that finding your way is not the path to career success. It's not actually that kind of path. It's more the notion that Aristotle might propose about acting toward your potential, striving for excellence, with the idea of contributing to the lives of other people and in a contemplative manner. It's about within you. Now, I had a student come and see me yesterday, actually, and I don't think she's in the room, but let's call her Mary. And she's a sophomore and fairly stressed. She's trying to resolve some difficult decisions about her summer internship. She has very different interests at Duke, and she could have one summer internship that would reinforce her credentials going down one path. She could have another summer internship that reinforces her credentials going down another path. And that she happened to say during spring break, she went on and had an experience that really engaged her emotionally and intellectually in brand new issues. And she was worried that she was not going to make the right decision. And she kept saying, I've got to figure this out. I've got to figure this out. And let me suggest to you that she might not have the right definition of finding her path. The idea of figuring out her summer internships in a way that's going to give her the best career path after she leaves Duke. Okay. There's a book I read just a number of years ago called 40 Schools That Change Students' Lives. I don't know if you know it, but it's very small schools like Warren Wilson College in Western Carolina, and they talk about preparing students to have land on their feet confidence, preparing students to see opportunities in uncertainty, and preparing students to be resourceful in tackling those opportunities. So let me suggest that a new version of finding your way is to find a way to prepare yourself to be a person like that, to be the best person you can be, striving for excellence based on your potential for the service to others and in a contemplative way. Now, Michael Maccabee wrote a book 35 years ago. I was in my first major line position in a 150-year-old insurance company. And this book is called The Gamesman. Michael Maccabee is a psychoanalyst. And I was running around the company saying, he used the term gamesmen back then, not gamespersons. We need to be gamesmen. We have to be movers and shakers. This is the new style of management. What Michael wrote is that there's a new kind of leader. It's a kind of leader that likes to play the game, likes to win the game, is team-oriented, is all in, is enthusiastic. And this is in compare and contrast with leaders that are either what he called company men or jungle fighters or craftspeople, technicians. This is the new leader. And that's what I got out of the book back in those days, and I missed the key point. Because Michael Maccabee also wrote that the gamesman, and when he or she wins the game and finishes their career, they feel a sense of emptiness. They have not developed what he would call strong hearts. He differentiates between qualities of the head, achievement-oriented, ambitious, rational, logical, careerism, competitive, and qualities of the heart. One type of quality of the heart is kind of obvious to all of us. That's compassion, empathy, generosity. There's another quality of the heart that he brings out, and that's courage, the heart of a lion, having the heart to do what's morally right. And he basically said back in the late 1970s, organizations, not just companies, but also academic institutions, the cultures reinforced the development of qualities of the head at the expense of qualities of the heart. And yet, to have a fulfilled life and become the best person you can be, you have to develop qualities of the heart, or what I call being strong-hearted. So the question is that relevant to you today? We have some data that we collected in one of my classes that suggests that it may be. We have some data that suggests that perceptions of the Duke culture are more often characterized as achievement-oriented, ambitious, career-oriented, and busy than they are inclusive, reflective, and empathetic. And I need you to pause for a minute or 30 seconds and say, is this what you're doing at Duke? Are you in the business at Duke of winning games? Are you the games person of 2012? You see, you can make the case that this is relevant to your future. Let's start with the case that this may be relevant to a successful career. The world has changed a lot in the last 25 years. We know that. 25 years from now, you'll be in your mid-40s. You'll be in the middle of your career. The world will be more different 25 years from now than it today is for 25 years ago. Whatever path you see to success in your career today may or may not exist 25 years from now. And I would argue, not suggest, I would argue that it's highly likely that in this rapidly changing, ever more complex world, companies will more and more view being a strong-hearted person as a distinctive asset, courage and compassion. Okay? I may be wrong, I may be right. I won't be here 25 years from now, but you will be. Okay? But the second question is even if this were not better for your career, to pay attention to becoming the best person you can be, by being a strong-hearted person. Even if this is not the best thing for your career, might it be good for your life? Now, I want you to read something out loud. I mean, as I say it, I want you to repeat it. Everybody? For the next 25 years, my career success is more important than my development as a human being. Please say that. For the next 25 years, my career success is more important than my development as a human being. Does that sound a little silly? Does that sound a little silly? So even if investing in the kinds of things that are going to have you become a strong-hearted person aren't good for your career, and I would argue they are, how could you ever say your current career and your career path is more important than becoming the best person you can be? You can't do it. Okay, so what can you do about it? Well, I'm going to suggest a couple of pretty specific strategies and specific actions. You can make meaning out of your current experiences. I'm not talking about necessarily going to a resort or a retreat and meditating all day. We are busy people. We all are busy people. If you can find a way every day to make meaning out of your experiences, you will become a better person. You can be more intentional about your moral code. What it means to act on as a principled person. What it means when you're a bystander, when you see things at Duke that may or may not call for intervention, whether it's dishonesty or sexual assault or intellectual dishonesty, knowing when you will act and when you will not act. Okay? What it means to have a sense of social justice and the meaning for you of whether or not there are any social justice issues in this world that touch a raw nerve in you. And maybe they don't, and maybe you should think about that. Okay, you can do that. You can make meaning out of your shared experiences with friends and classmates. In the process of making meaning out of shared experiences with friends and classmates, you can get to know each other. You can become more empathetic. You can become a better listener. You might not only understand what they're thinking, but you might begin to feel what they're feeling. Okay? What could you do specifically? You could make a list of interesting people that you'd like to have a discussion with at Duke. How many of you are in classes where there are interesting people and you'd say, geez, it would be kind of interesting to have a cup of coffee with that person after class, and there are all kinds of social barriers that get in the way of saying, let's get to know each other. How many of your best friends have come out of classes where you have common intellectual interests? Okay? You can, once you think about your moral code, you can define a specific issue that you know is going to happen. The next time it happens, you're going to speak out on in a constructive way. Okay? You can exercise leadership the way we defined it at the beginning of this session, and that is things that stimulate you or irritate you that you can do something about. You can act on that. Now, I'm kind of fortunate in some ways that I didn't have to spend a lot of time finding my way. I started at Duke in 1960. The world was very different. I didn't come from a background of success. I was a two-time college dropout. I transferred twice. I didn't have any expectations. My wife and I, we lived in small worlds. She could have basically been a nurse or a teacher. I had a choice between two companies. I didn't have all these overwhelming complexities. And yet, I kind of found my own way, and I can tell you it was not a straight line. I am here in March 31st with the best job at Duke. I am teaching leadership courses to undergraduate students who are highly motivated and are highly interested in learning about leadership and becoming more effective leaders. Okay? I've had 2 or 3 careers. I had one terrible false start that I learned a lot from, maybe one of my best learning lessons in my life in terms of going down a road that was not the right road for me. and here I am. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have the world's not different, because it is today, but I think I would argue that paying attention to becoming a strong-hearted person, paying attention to a paradigm of finding your way that's not about a path to a destination, but it's about a path to within yourself. I think I'd argue that that's more important today than it was in my generation. So I close, just don't forget the saying, success is getting what you want, happiness is wanting what you get. Aristotle would say happiness is not a feeling, it's a process, it's an action process towards personal fulfillment. And the big idea here is that there's a new paradigm about finding your way, that you should lose our way in order to find your way, get rid of the path, and think about it, think about something you can do, make a decision today to act on something that you will do next week, act, and you'll be a step forward. Thank you so much.